I'm Tom.
I'm Sherry.
And we are back talking more about information I shared in Sunday's sermon. We're going to talk more about the census today, but some background information that's going to talk about the inheritance, the land that the Israelites were looking forward to in the Promised Land, and some other land that they weren't necessarily expecting ahead of time.
Okay.
All right. So as some background information for that, I'm going to ask, go ahead in your Bibles, if you haven't, turn to Numbers chapter 21. We're going to be in Numbers 21, starting at verse number 21. There's two short battle stories here that are key to what we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
Right? Go ahead.
Can we read them?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Numbers 21, starting at verse 21. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, "Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into field or vineyard. We will not drink the water of a well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory." But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. He gathered all his people together and went out against Israel to the wilderness and came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. And Israel defeated him with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as the Ammonites, for the border of the Ammonites was strong. And Israel took all these cities, and Israel settled in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon, and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and taken all his land out of his hand, as far as the Arnon. Therefore the ballad singers say, "Come to Heshbon, let it be built. Let the city of Sihon be established. For fire came out from Heshbon, flame from the city of Sihon. It devoured Ar of Moab and swallowed the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab! You are undone, O people of Shamash. He has made his sons fugitives and his daughters captives to an Amorite king, Sihon. So we overthrew them. Heshbon as far as Dibon perished, and we laid waste as far as Nophah. Fire spread as far as Medeba."
Okay, so there we have the first of two stories. This one's about a king named Sihon. And what happens here is the Israelites are just on their way working their way toward the Promised Land. And to get there, they connect with Sihon and say, "Hey, we just need permission to pass through your country. We're not going to take any of the resources." Some of the things they talk about in that passage. You can turn back there just a second. They said, "Here, we will not turn aside into field or vineyard. We won't drink the water from a well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. Let us have way through. It's all we're asking for." But Sihon will have none of that.
He says no.
He says no. And he's going to start a fight against the Israelites here, and it's not going to be good for Sihon. Not going to be good at all. In fact, what's going to happen is that the Israelites are going to defeat Sihon and his group in battle, and as a result of that, since they came on and they attacked Israel in self-defense is going to say, fight back. Israel's going to defeat him, so Israel's going to acquire this land. Now, Sihon is an Amorite from the Amorite people, and what we find here is if we look over in that poem that you read there, starting at verse number 27, in verse 27, we have here kind of a recap of some of the things here in history. On to verse number 29, it says, "Woe to you, O Moab! You are undone, O people of Shamash. He has made his sons fugitives and his daughters captives to an Amorite king, Sihon." So in verse 29 here, we have the history of the fact that this area of the Amorites, they actually took this area from Moab in their past. And we've got, it says Chemosh, that's one of the God here of that people of Moab. So verse 29 talking about the fact that, hey, the Amorites came in, they took that land from Moab, but guess what? Well, when those Amorites attacked the Israelites, that land is not going to be in their possession any longer. Now the Israelites are going to take it from the Amorites. And so read again just verse 30 if you would.
Verse 30 says, "So we overthrew them. Heshbon as far as Dibon perished, and we laid waste as far as Nophah. Fire spread as far as Medeba."
Exactly. So that Medeba and Dibon, they're actually going to eventually become part of the territory of Eastern Gad, where those Gadites are going to be. And we're going to talk about that more in just a moment. So let's go ahead to that second story here, starting at verse number 31.
All right. Thus Israel lived in the land of the Amorites. And Moses sent to spy out Gezer, and they captured its villages and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. Then they turned and went up by the way of Bashan. And Og, the king of Bashan, came out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, Do not fear him, for I have given him into your hand, and all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon. So they defeated him, and his sons and all his people, until he had no survivor left, and they possessed his land.
Okay, so another story here. A few things I want to share. Og, I love the name, don't you?
I always think of the Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Og, that's one thing, yeah. So we've got this guy Og, and he has some sort of an alliance. He's an ally of Sihon, okay? And interesting, I went ahead and paperclipped a verse for you here, back in the book of Deuteronomy. Oh, so this way a little bit, my bad. Deuteronomy chapter 3 and verse number 11. Just one verse, a little parenthetical statement about Og. Go ahead and read that.
For only Og, the king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bed was a bed of iron. Is it not in Rabbath of the Ammonites? 9 cubits was its length, and 4 cubits its breadth, according to the common cubit.
Yeah, so a little, I don't know the word translation, but what's the word when you adjust the numbers there? I forget that word there that I'm going to use. But anyway, that cubits and stuff, what this means is that the size of his bed was actually over 13 feet long and 6 feet wide.
That's taller than you.
Yes, and then some, okay? So this guy was literally a giant. Okay, he was the last of the Bashan giants. And so this is a very large man. And what does God say about Og here in Numbers chapter 20? He says, hey, don't worry about Og. You're going to overtake them just like you overtook Sihon. Now remember that as the Israelites were traveling to the Promised Land, it was not their intent to engage in battle and fight until they reached the Promised Land. At that point, they would go in and they would take over those countries. But these countries came and fought against Israel. They started the fight. And so the Israelites just battled back, defending themselves. And here, what's going to happen again? Israel is going to acquire more land, this time from Og. Now, you've got the east of the Jordan and west of the Jordan. All of the Promised Land is west of the Jordan. But these two regions of Og and Sihon are both on the eastern side of the Jordan. And now Israelite has this excess, this extra land that they weren't counting on having on that side of the Jordan as well. All right? So keep that in mind. I want you to turn now over to Numbers chapter 32, because that information we just read is going to be key to what we see here in this chapter. Numbers 32. Go ahead and start reading for us.
Now the people of Reuben and the people of Gad had a very great number of livestock. And they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and behold, the place was a place for livestock. So the people of Gad and the people of Reuben came and said to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the chiefs of the congregation, Adaroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Elilah, Sabam, Nebo, and Beon.
Well done.
Yeah. The land that the Lord struck down before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. And they said, If we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. Okay,
so the Israelites, they hadn't been to the Promised Land yet, but they knew that that area, compared to the area on the eastern side that they had just acquired through the defeat of the peoples of Og and Sihon, his peoples, that land where Og and Sihon were, that land was actually better for the cattle that they had for grazing. And so what do they request of Moses in that passage?
We want to stay here.
We'd like to stay in this area.
Because we have livestock.
And this fits.
And this is a land for livestock.
This is what we need, right? Okay, go ahead, keep reading.
But Moses said to the people of Gad and to the people of Reuben, Shall your brothers go to the war while you sit here? Why will you discourage the heart of the people of Israel from going over into the land that the Lord has given them? Your fathers did this when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up from the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the people of Israel from going into the land that the Lord had given them. And the Lord's anger was kindled on that day. And he swore, saying, Surely none of the men who came up out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. None, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. And the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was gone. And behold, you have risen in your father's place, a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger of the Lord against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will again abandon them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all this people.
Okay, so they make this request of Moses. Moses is not happy about this request. All right. Now, interesting point here with the Gadites and the Reubenites. These guys actually had been together over the last nearly 40 years, because when they set up their camps around the tabernacle side by side, again and again, the Reubenites and the Gadites were placed together next to each other for all of these almost 4 decades now. So these guys had been connecting for a long time.
So they weren't tired of each other. They wanted to still stay with each other.
They did, but maybe there were some people that were tired, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But apparently, it's just not for sure, but these guys knew each other, all right? So they come with this request. Moses is not happy, all right? Because what does he say? He remembers back, 40 years ago. He says, guys, let's think about this here, because 4 decades ago, I sent how many spies?
12.
That's right. 12 men went to spy in Canaan.
Only 2 had good reviews.
No. 10 were bad and 2 were good.
10 were bad and I didn't sing that song
No,
in my growing up.
What?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Sing it.
12 men went to spy in Canaan, 10 were bad and 2 were... Yeah, okay. So they were going through, and these guys went over. Remember, Joshua and Caleb, who were mentioned,
right.
They said, we can do this. We can conquer these people. The Lord is going to be with us. The other 10 said, we can't do this. We can't. They're giants over there. And so Moses is saying, listen, this could all happen over again. If you 2 tribes aren't going to go in to help conquer the promised land, the other tribes might say, well, if they're not going to go in, we're not going to go in either. Right. And then the Lord's going to be angry all over again. It's going to be the same problem.
And it might be another 40 years.
Yeah, so it's going to be history repeating itself. Okay, go on.
Then they came near to him and said, We will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones, but we will take up arms, ready to go before the people of Israel, until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones shall live in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We shall not return to our homes until each of the people of Israel has gained his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has come to us on this side of the Jordan to the east.
All right, so here what we have is, okay, so the Gadites and the Reubenites, how does that verse start? Then they came near to him and said. So these guys may have gone back and said, okay, we got to talk this out a bit here. So they came back and said, okay, Moses, what about if we do this? Okay?
We'll go with you, we'll help out.
Yeah, we're not going to excuse ourselves from battle. We'll leave our kids and our cattle. We'll set up some places for our cattle. We'll leave our kids and our wives behind. There were probably some other fighting men left behind just for, keeping everybody safe. But the bulk of our fighting men, the most of them are going to go over, and we're going to fight with the Israelites to conquer the land. Here's the thing. We're not going to come back to our inheritance on the east side of the Jordan until all of the other tribes have their inheritance on the west side. Okay? Go on.
So Moses said to them, If you will do this, if you will take up arms to go before the Lord for the war, and every armed man of you will pass over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then after that you shall return and be free of obligation to the Lord and to Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Build cities for your little ones, and folds for your sheep, and do what you have promised. And the people of Gad and the people of Reuben said to Moses, Your servants will do as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our livestock, and all our cattle shall remain there in the cities of Gilead. But your servants will pass over, every man who is armed for war, before the Lord to battle, as my Lord orders.
All right, so Moses said, okay, if you will do what you said or what you proposed to me, we'll do. You'll have this land on the east. Remember those words right there. But if you don't, what does it say? Your sin will find you out. Those are famous words. We kind of hear it from time to time. This is where they come from.
It happens, doesn't it?
It does. Your sin will find you out. All right? Okay, go ahead.
So Moses gave command concerning them as to Eleazar the priest, and to Joshua the son of Nun, and to the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of the people of Israel. And Moses said to them, If the people of Gad and the people of Reuben, every man who is armed to battle before the Lord, will pass with you over the Jordan, and the land shall be subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. However, if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. And the people of Gad and the people of Reuben answered, What the Lord has said to your servants we will do. We will pass over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, and the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us beyond the Jordan.
Okay, and so they agree to it. And here, notice what happens here, though. Moses says, okay, and then he tells it to Joshua, Eleazar, and some of the leaders among the people.
I know why.
Why is this?
Because Moses isn't going to be with them going to the promised land.
Because he's going to...
Because he's going to die.
Exactly.
Of his punishment.
And who's going to take over?
Joshua.
Joshua. So Josh, keep this in mind. They made this agreement. If they follow through with their side of the bargain, all is good. If not...
Your sin will find them out.
That's right. And they'll be in the west side of the Jordan with all the other tribes. Go ahead.
All right. I forgot where I'm at. But verse
right
33.
there. Yep.
And Moses gave to them, to the people of Gad, and to the people of Reuben, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land and its cities with their territories, the cities of the land throughout the country.
Now, interesting part here. All this agreement is made with Moses and then the Reubenites and Gadites, right? But at the very tail end, seemingly out of nowhere, the agreement said, okay, it's done. The Gadites, the Reubenites, and
the half-tribe of Manasseh.
The half-tribe of Manasseh somehow is in this agreement as well. It's interesting how they all of a sudden just appear in this. If you look at a map of the tribes of Israel and how their land allotments are set up, it's interesting because it says the half-tribe of Manasseh. Now understand, Manasseh was an entire tribe. There was Joseph, if you remember back in Genesis, had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And Jacob adopts those two sons as his own, so that Joseph, his favorite son, will then get two tribes in the promised land, not just one. One for his adopted son, or Joseph's son, Ephraim, and one for his son, Manasseh. All right? So he's going to get two tribes in the inheritance. Interesting here, if you look at the numbers of the first census to the second census, Manasseh has grown big time. Their difference of fighting men aged 20 and up from the first census to the second census, 20,500 more men of fighting age. So we don't know how many women and children are included in this, but it appears that their tribe has just exploded in numbers. So they probably need more land for all of their people. So when we look at that map of all the tribes of Israel, we note that there's a Manasseh allotment of land on both the east side of the Jordan and the west side. For whatever reason, some of the Manasseh people said, we'd like to stay on this side, and the other half said, no, we'd rather go to this side. Now, we don't know all the details there, but that's what happened. Okay, go ahead, finish up.
All right. And the people of Gad built Dibon, Ataroth, Aror, Arath, Shaphan, Jazer, Jagabhan, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, fortified cities and folds for sheep.
Would you repeat those, please?
And the people of Reuben built Heshbon, Eliel, Kuriathaim, Nebo, and Baal Meon.
How about those?
Their names were changed.
Oh.
Still reading.
Sorry.
And Sibmah. And they gave other names to the cities that they built. And the sons of Machir, the son of Manasseh, went to Gilead and captured it, and dispossessed the Amorites who were in it. And Moses gave Gilead to Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he settled in it. And Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and captured their villages, and called them Havoth Jair. And Nobah went and captured Kenath and its villages, and called it Nobah, after his own name.
Okay, so that's chapter 32, and then we get to chapter 33, which we covered in Sunday's sermon, just talking about, all these cities they traveled to throughout their journey. But what I want to say here as we finish up is, after they get through this area where Sihon and Og were, and the Amorites were moving toward the promised land, the Israelites are almost to the promised land as was promised. All right. So because of the rebelling early on, they had to wander 40 years in the wilderness. But keep in mind, God promised that land to them, and they are going to get there. God always keeps His promises. All right. We'll be back tomorrow for day 3. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.